Happy New Year. Major Williams here with the Major Motivation Podcast, where we talk about all things inspirational, aspirational, and major motivational. Today, I have another amazing guest for 2026. I said I was going to bring you guys a lot of people that can bring you some great stories, some great behind the scenes of the things that they do, but also educate you in many different ways. So, Adam Brawer, welcome to the Major Motivation Podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Major. It's a pleasure to be here.
So listen, we have to start with context. We've been wanting to do this since 2025. I think it was supposed to happen in 2026. And I think the conversation that we're going to have today is going to be as relevant or even more relevant than it would have been in 2025. So thank you for the patience and working your schedule around ours to make this happen. And shout out to Tina. Oh my
He's a champion.
God. So I guess the intro of this, I just really want to know more about your story, more than I already know that I've researched, and just kind of give us a little, um, you know, 60-second intro into who you are, um, and kind of like your journey. Because if I lay it out, I saw the transition from TV and film, which was the industry I was a part of, the entertainment industry, but that's like all things. We evolve, we grow, and we expand. And you kind of had that journey as well too. Kind of walk us through that expansion and that growth period for you.
Yeah, well, once again, thanks for having me. I was born and raised in Brooklyn, moved to LA about 22 years ago to work at the William Morris Agency, talent agency. I was in film and entertainment for about 15 years, starting in the agency world, then in management, then in producing reality TV and film. In 2019, I had had enough of the film business. I had a series of major films that died at like the five, the two, the 1 yard line, and decided to pivot. And really wasn't sure which direction to go, but I decided to get my real estate license as a fallback while I decided what to do with my life. I got I experienced success very quickly. Thankfully, timing was fantastic. COVID hit, less than 6 months after I got my license, and it was like, psh. And then I was like, you know what? I like this business. I planted my flag firmly, rooted down, focused, and now I sell homes to some of the actors who I used to work with on the other side.
Hey, what's going on, everyone? As an entrepreneur, I have sold over 500,000 digital downloads and ebooks. And now, this year in 2026, I want to show you exactly how I was able to do that. So, if you're someone that's an entrepreneur, if you are a creator or influencer, and you want to release your next digital product, but you don't really have a game plan in place, this is the opportunity that you've been waiting on. So click the link below in this episode and I will walk you through the process. And hopefully, you will be given a testimonial of you selling millions of digital products because anyone can do it. Why? Because I did it. Now, back to the episode. So, how was that transition for you? Coming from a different industry, were there many attributes and talents and skill sets that you learned there that you were easily able to transfer over into real estate?
Fantastic question. Way more than I expected. So when I first got into real estate, I learned as much as quickly as possible, but I didn't know what I didn't know, and I knew that I didn't know most of everything. Um, as a producer, you're the CEO of the project. You're the glue. You keep everything together. Every problem is your problem. So I was acquiring the intellectual property, getting the script in shape, packaging, bringing the director, the actors, bringing the money, getting distribution, very complicated, a lot of moving pieces. In real estate, whether I'm on the buy side or the sell side, it's much less complicated and it's much faster. The time horizon in film, could be 5 to 10 years. You could never make the movie. In real estate, in 90 days, you can be in and out, check in the bank, cashed, done. And in terms of skill set, in film, there's negotiation, there's marketing, you're talking to creatives, you're talking to what we call the suits, the executives, the financiers, you're managing expectation, you're relaxing the talent, you're pitching. In real estate, the pitch is the listing presentation. The difference is you're getting a seller who wants to sell to agree to sell with you. In
Mm.
film, I was pitching Universal and Sony and saying, "Hey, I've got this idea for a movie. Uh, what do you think?" And getting executives who are paid to say no, because if they say yes enough times to movies that flop, they lose their job. So I was getting executives who are paid to say no to say yes. Very challenging scenario, very cold room. In real estate, it's a much warmer room. And so skill set wise, you've got the pitch, you are managing expectations on both sides with clients. There's strategy involved. You are being creative. I mean, in terms of content now, the films I make are like 2 minutes or less. They're listing videos. But I'm still, bringing a commercial director on board and producing those shoots. It's just much faster, way fewer variables. And so extremely similar skill set, way more than I expected.
Right.
And it was way more. I mean, I was very nervous. I was very anxious because I was stepping into uncharted territory. But I was way more prepared than I expected.
No, I totally understand that sentiment. So when you were looking at the landscape of that transition, and I've explained to you more why I'm really bunkering down on this particular process, is that when you were in the phases of making that transition, what stood out to you that gave you the confidence to go ahead and say, I'm going to make that actual shift? Obviously, knowing what you already explained, going into those cold rooms, and then just knowing that dynamic tends to be a little harder. But what was there an identifying moment that said, you know what, let me do this? Did you look at the landscape of realtors or the landscape of real estate in general, and then just did you see your skill set translating in a way where you feel like you can make the traction that you've made right now?
The traction that I made came much faster and more complete than I expected. So I really surprised myself. I would say I was at a point in my life when I was not very confident because I was coming off the back of like multiple failures. Um, and so I didn't do, if I'm being totally honest, I did not do a ton of research on like my competition. What I did do is focus on morning practices, focus on meditation, breath work, gratitude mindset, yoga, things to clear my mind so I can start a new chapter. And I figured in film, there's so much out of my control. Almost everything was out of my control. But what I could do is control my mornings and control my practices and rituals. And everything that I could control, I controlled to a T. I was highly disciplined. So I brought that into real estate. And then I would start to share when a client would, open up to me and let's say they were dealing with anxiety or issues with the marriage, I would start to offer some words of advice or a certain practice that's helped me. And we would get closer, more connected, there was more trust, and then they would hire me. And I was like, oh wow, I can 100% be myself and even be more successful.
No, I love that. And I also love the touch in regards to the sage. And I have a funny story because it's not my story, but I've seen a story where another guy took a different approach. He was actually smoking marijuana in the house. It's to so I think the sage is a little more safer bet to cleanse the house of all of the negativity or whatever, make it welcoming for the people coming. Um, so when it comes to that aspect of it, obviously that puts you in the category of being alert, aware, spiritual, more in line and connected, and it shows a lot of deep intent. But the problem is, and you can tell me if you faced this in the past, it does it. I don't know how to say this, but that particular approach, and you can tell me if you've experienced this because you make the social media content, would you believe that would be something that could ostracize you in the future for actual clients, celebrities, and athletes that you're potentially going to be working with?
100%.
Yeah.
So I was nervous about that at first. I was like, all right, well, I might bullseye these 5 clients, but these 50 clients might be like, who's this weirdo dancing in houses with Sage? So, so what I did at first is like, I'm gonna choose who to share this with. I'm gonna be like a ninja in the room. I'm gonna read the room, all 360 directions, feel the energy, see where the curiosity is. If someone's kind of a little bit curious, I'll share a little more, and then a little more, and then a little more. If I talk about meditation and they're totally checked out, no way am I going to talk about Sage. It's not happening. And then I mean, I'm in LA, so LA is a very specific spot. If I was in Boise, Idaho, or Tulsa, Oklahoma, I would probably be a different person myself, actually. Uh, but in LA, there's a pretty big spiritual community here, and even if you're not, even if you don't have like a meditation practice, you don't do yoga, there's something that's Sage is a little more
Oh,
acceptable.
familiar. Yeah.
Yeah, it's more familiar. Like you'll walk into a certain space and there'll be even for stagers, the stagers I hire, they have Sage in the house. It's just that they think it looks cute sometimes. They may or may not know that there are certain spiritual elements to the Sage. So then I thought to myself, okay, if I'm alienating myself from, a chunk of people, how will that affect my business? And then I was like, you know what, maybe that I should ask myself a different question. If I like, do I want to go wide and shallow and get everybody, or do I want to go narrow and deep and like bullseye the clients that I feel the most aligned with?
Right.
And I did a little bit of a hybrid where I was like, okay, I'm going to bullseye people who I think are on my wavelength. I'm going to share everything, get them super on board, share some wisdom, maybe do a meditation breathwork practice with them. For people who are totally closed off, but let's say they've got a really nice luxury house and I would like to help them, I won't say a word about it. And they may or may, if they're super wealthy and older, they're probably not checking out my social media. Maybe they are. I don't know.
No, and I just wanted to ask you that because obviously, I've dealt with a lot of different clients and I've spoken to a lot of different people in a variety of industries, and I've had to walk that walk or perform that dance as well in many different perspectives. So, when I watched the videos, I was like, I'm going to ask him, at least about that, not in a way that I'm against it, right? It's the sage in my house right now. Um, but I just know how that works with the psychology of people and human beings and stuff like that. Before we began our conversation earlier and started recording this, one of the first things that stood out to me, obviously, where your muscles are bigger than mine. Yes, I realize that. But I also I acknowledge the hat, and you were telling me a little more about this particular hat. I'm a marketing guy. I'm heavily invested, learning in psychology. Tell me more about this hat because I love the way you explained it. But then tell me the other attributes that go along with having such a cool hat like that.
Yeah, thank you for the question. So this hat's made by my favorite hat maker here in Topanga. His name's Busto. He's an Italian guy who learned under the maestro hat maker who makes all of Hermes's hats.
Wow.
And he apprenticed for a really long time. And so with this hat specifically, I wanted it to be like an homage to one of my favorite luxury brands, which is Rolex. And so what I did is I deconstructed a Rolex box. This is like a 1970s, 80s Rolex box. This is green Rolex leather. This is the crown right here. On the inside, we took a piece of the Rolex box. So this is their address in Switzerland. I bought a vintage Rolex scarf. So you see the huge crown here and then on the inside as well. I threw a saying of mine, keep it regal. It's like keep it real, but keep it regal. And then we've got, instead of bullets, we've got 3 crystal bullets
Wow.
right there. Spiritual warrior vibes.
That is so fantastic. That hat is so legit. that, that hat is so legit. When we get off, I'm gonna have to show my wife because she's a.
Yeah. I'll share his IG with you.
Oh yeah, please do, please
He's
do.
great.
So
So
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, so in terms of, when I first got one of these, I have another saying, it's ABC, not always be closing, always be celebrating.
Mm,
And when you're in the energy and the spirit of celebration, people want to be around you. You become more magnetic. And
absolutely.
so I would start to celebrate certain sales or certain wins with certain pieces. Like I might get a nice necklace, I might get a watch, I might get a custom hat. And with these hats, I realize, it's a little bit of an investment, but it's a differentiator. And so people will stop me all over the place and ask me where I got the hat. All of a sudden, I'm in a conversation, and this conversation could go any direction. Maybe there's a new client here. Who knows?
Right. And the great thing about especially being in LA, it may not be a great client, but you made a lasting impression on that person who may know your next client, right? And so it's just the psychology of that is amazing, which is why when we was talking about it in that reference, my hat, just a regular little dad hat, but it says pay me $1 million. And literally people stop and they think and they have to ask the question. It's like, what does that mean? Well, and I wanted you to speak to me. That's what it meant, right? It can mean anything, right? Uh,
Yes.
there's just the psychology of that. And I've created so many partnerships and friendships and people in my network, literally just by having this particular hat on. I feel like this one, yours, has that exact same type of energy. So I get it. I get it.
Game recognized game. I like the call to action though, because like as a salesman, I had a story back in the day. It's actually a friend story. He's in a shop on Melrose checking out some shirts. He's in there for a while, picks up a shirt like three different times. The store owner just walks over and he's like, "Hey, buy my shirt." And he's like, "What?" He's like, "Buy my shirt. How much do you want to pay for that? How much is that worth to you?" And he's like, $60. He's like, "Perfect. Let's go." Just not
Wow. I love
like
it.
direct.
I love it. And the backstory is that, you know, in developing digital products, I don't know if you know my backstory. I've sold a lot of digital books online. Yeah. But those are $9, $15, and I've sold a lot of them. But we've always talked about the theory of at some point I'm going to be able to sell something, one thing for $1 million, and they're going to ask me what the price is. I'm going to say pay me $1 million. So this is my manifestation that I walk around with all the
Yes.
time.
I like that. Jim Carrey used to have a $10 million check in his wallet.
Yes, yes, this is my Jim Carrey check right here on my hat. 2026. So the psychology of people when it comes to real estate, when it comes to fostering relationships, how has that process been for you? And has it been a learning curve, or were you able to adapt easier because of the skill sets that you had interacting with celebrities, executives, set designs, or whatever it was? Do you feel like it was a cleaner transition for you to have those conversations and connect with those individuals in this market?
I think so. I think in entertainment, as you know, there's a whole wide, full spectrum of people you deal with.
Right.
And so, um, yeah, I feel like I sharpened my communication skills knowing, okay, this is an artist. He does not want to be talked to the same way that I'm talking to this financier. If I talk to this artist the way I talk to this financier, he's not going to want to hang out with me. And if I talk to the financier the way I talk to the artist, he's not going to do business with me. So I guess the one thing that I could boil it down to is know your audience. And so I would be also there's a great book, Brian Grazer wrote it, and it's about curiosity, being really curious. Now, I'm at Compass. The founder of Compass is Robert Refkin, who's an incredible dude. I believe he was the youngest African American billionaire on paper in the United States. And he wrote a book as well called Nobody Succeeds Alone.
Mm,
And his main thing is also being curious. When you're deeply curious, you can't help but be present. It's impossible. If you're really curious, you're leaning in. You want to know more. So I would be curious. In real estate, I never know who's going to open the front door. I never know who I'm going to meet. It's a different person all the time. It could be a titan of, I've got a client who's worth about $80 billion. I also have clients who are don't have much money. I mean, they're homeowners, but they don't have much money. Full spectrum. So I started to lean into my curiosity, and the more present I was, the deeper the relationships I built, and that was very helpful.
No, that's amazing. I would say in your business with the evolution of everything that's happening, you see AI that's here and automations and everyone is expanding, creating better content, for social media, but also being intentional about it. It's not just like the stepchild, the ugly, third wheel, right? People are very intentional about it, and I can tell that you're very, intentional about it as well. What is it about retention? So how I want to talk about retention and systems that you have in place, or if you don't have the systems in place, how is that transaction? How do you continue the conversation and the development with clients, or in your field, do you guys not touch it anymore? Once I sell your house, thank you for the commission. It was all good, and do you move on, or is there something you have in place specifically that you can talk about and share a little bit on how you stay connected with those individuals, and if you do, is it automated?
Absolutely. So for me, systems and process are super duper important, as important as human connection, I would say. And when you marry those two, you're golden. So there's an amazing teacher I learned from about a year ago. His name is Larry Kendall. He wrote a book called Ninja Selling, which is phenomenal for real estate, very applicable to almost any salesperson, marketing person, someone who has clients. And one of the principles is being in flow. When you're in flow with your clients, and they like you, know you, and trust you, but you're in flow with them, you're top of mind, the likelihood you get the business is exponentially higher. So how do you stay in flow? What I do, I have 3 touches per month with all of my clients or potential clients or my sphere of influence, people in my life who can refer me potential clients. My 3 touches are number one, I have 2 newsletters a month. This is just the baseline. And two, I have a monthly mailer, which is very, very different from it's the type of mailer where people will actually take photos of it and send it to me. I created every quarter, I have a fake magazine that I've created with myself on the cover, and it's hilarious. And the first couple of times I had this one friend who's like a supermodel, and she was like, "Congratulations, you got the cover." And I was like, "She doesn't even know this is a fake." Um, so like I want people to stop and pay attention, probably to laugh, because if they're laughing, they're present, and to remember it. And so I've got an amazing marketing executive who helps, and a graphic designer. And so 12 of those a year, 24 newsletters a year. And then I also try to have another personal touch with clients because for me, it's a marathon. I'm playing chess. I'm not playing checkers. I'm looking to have decades of relationship growth with these people. And so I like to call it like voice to voice, whether it's a phone conversation, a coffee, a lunch, a dinner, a meal, an activity. Um, I went to the U and I'm checking out the game tonight with a bunch of people. And so being really social,
Yeah.
very, very helpful. But those 3 touches, I've noticed if I get those 3 touches in, I'm pretty solid.
No, that's so good. And the reason why I asked that is because, I speak to a lot of business owners, and you will be surprised at how many are not connected or don't really show the interest or know the value and impact that it can be for their personal brand or even for their business. And so one of my missions is to not only educate, but get people excited about expanding their touch points and their business and increasing their revenue with these simple steps and automations that they can all put in place. So thanks for sharing that. I greatly appreciate it. One thing that I did very early on, 17 years ago, is when I wanted to reconform my thinking, my life, and everything, I tapped into virtual or digital mentors. Maybe they have the money at the time to go to big seminars or even travel. So I locked myself in the public library for 2 years, and I just was on YouTube every single day watching all these different people that I was inspired by, extracting the knowledge, just rebuilding myself. If someone was watching you right now, what is what are some of the key principles pertaining to success that you've had that you could share, if it's like one or two tidbits that could help them on their journey moving forward in your particular space?
All right. Number one, so right as I was making a pivot, a friend of mine who was a pretty big marketing person in New York gave me a Joe Dispenza book called Becoming Supernatural. And she said, this book changed my life. And so I was about to change my life as well, and I wanted to make sure it was a good change. So I read the book and I started doing these guided quantum meditations. And so it would start out where I would visualize. I started very small. I was like, okay, for me, manifestation is deeply feeling how it feels to be or do or have whatever it is you're looking for. If you don't feel it, it doesn't work. But if you feel that day in and day out, you shall have that. And so what I would do is I would do this vigorous breath work to ground myself, get into this meditative space, and then deeply imagine how incredible it would be. And at first, it was literally just taking my friends to Soho House, buying like a dozen people dinner, and celebrating a big sale. Then it was $10 million listing. Then it was $25 million listing. Then it was romantic partner. Then it was $50 million listing. And I just staying in that space where you change your frequency and hold it for a long time, it works miracles. There is no doubt. I've experienced it myself. I would say that probably this one specific type of breath work called pyramid breath, Johann Erb developed it. If you marry those two, absolute game changer. And then the third is cold water immersion. I noticed that, yeah, it's like if you're in an ice bath for 3, 4, 5 minutes, you get out, you feel phenomenal. It's like you just survived battle.
Absolutely. I'm all for that. I actually practice that very deeply. I have an indoor pool, and
Nice.
so I plunge a lot. I do the heat, I do the sauna as well, and it really allows me to kind of reset. Um, my wife is over here right now. She did like this, and in her terms, and my oldest son, he said this means, oh, you're flexing. I didn't mean to flex. Yes, I have an indoor pool.
I think you got a little.
Right. Anyway, I believe in manifestation. I believe that it could carve whatever path that you want for yourself in your life. And you're right, it really does come down to that actual feeling. You have to start something with that vision. And the frustrating part for some entrepreneurs and for solopreneurs is that they forget that proponent. So you have to kind of reverse engineer your mindset because they see so many happy endings, like the $50 million deal or the $10 million deal. You have to remind them of the basics that will actually get you to that point.
Yes.
Um, and so,
Unbelievable.
yeah,
You,
absolutely.
you know,
Absolutely. So I'm glad that you lean heavily on that. And I'm glad that's one of the attributes that you share with the audience, because I think that's going to be one of the greatest takeaways from this, because, it does take time, but it can happen faster. Our mind is so powerful. The
yes.
manifestation is absolutely a real thing. And, I'm just happy that we was able to have this conversation. I guess one of the couple wrap up questions that I would say right now is that even if it was, 2 years ago, going into, I mean, over the next 2 years, what do you see yourself advancing towards? What are some of your goals in your particular field?
So one thing that I'm stepping into in the next couple months is developing property. I've helped clients develop, and I'm at a space, I'm in a place now where I have great support staff, which gives me more space to create. And I've got all the relationships with the interior designers, architects, builders, GCs, etc. So I am starting to do flips, and then from there building spec homes. And I have full control over those projects. In my strictly real estate agent business, I'm an advisor. My clients make all the decisions. As a developer, I make all the decisions, and then I make all the money as well. So that's the biggest step, the newest chapter, I
Uh,
would say.
it's fantastic. Um, if you were to have the stage, you know, say for instance, we have a couple minutes, and if you had the stage right now and you are about to exit, and everyone eyes are specifically on you based upon their excitement that you're on the stage, but it's time for you to wrap up. And you know this, right? In your heart of minds, what is it that you would say at that moment to truly connect with those individuals? Because from my experience, it's not everything that you about what you say; it's about how you make people feel. What is it
Mm.
you want people to feel during that during that exit moment for you?
The message I would leave, I would say one of the most beautiful things in life is that wherever you currently are, regardless of wherever you currently are, your ability to change your situation is so far greater than you could ever possibly imagine if you have the discipline and the imagination to stick with it. And I've dramatically changed my life. So I would say, in terms of like to motivate that, I read a great quote a couple days ago. I'm actually going to pull it up right now.
So please
I,
do.
I took a picture. I took a picture of it because I was like, "This is cool." The beginning is always today.
Hmm.
That's what I would say.
The beginning is always today. I love that. That's a T-shirt. I love that. Listen, Adam, I greatly appreciate you for coming on and sharing gems. I love your energy. I'm happy that you are enjoying something that you're actually doing. And I think a lot of people are going to learn from this brief conversation that we're having. Hopefully, we get a chance to have a more extended one here really soon to kind of unpack some other things and just really give people some frameworks and some guides to for them while they're on their journey as well too. So I greatly appreciate you for joining me, my brother. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a sincere pleasure. I
Where
really
can people find you, Adam?
Instagram at Adam Brawer, Brawer, and Adam Brawer Estates, plural.com.
Fantastic. Well, Adam, thank you so much for joining me, man. I greatly appreciate it. We will, like I said, we will definitely do this again. This has been the Majoration Podcast, where we do all things inspirational, aspirational, and motivational with great guests that's going to push you, that's going to give you great insights, and is going to share great stories and information right here. So make sure to like, share, and subscribe. And let's make this one of the biggest episodes that we've ever had here on the Majoration Podcast. We're gonna manifest that. All right.
I feel it. It feels great.
I love it. Thank you so much, man. I appreciate you. I'll make sure Tina send over all my information. Let's definitely stay connected.
Would love that. Thanks for the opportunity. Have a wonderful day.
See you soon.